All right, so get this. Um, this Abundance Wellness Hub podcast, right?
Okay, yeah.
I've been really digging into it, and honestly, it's got me thinking, because they're all about this whole unlocking abundance thing. Abundance in like every single area of your life, which, let's face it,
Yeah.
who isn't at least a little bit intrigued by that?
Well, and it's funny because it is such a universally appealing concept.
Right.
Like, who doesn't want abundance?
Right, exactly.
But I think what I find so interesting about this particular podcast is they actually manage to break it down in a way that feels, tangible, actionable.
Totally. And they do that with these like three core pillars, right? Body, mind, spirit.
Right.
Which, okay, we've all heard that before.
Of course, yeah.
But what makes this podcast different, I think, is how they sort of blend those more traditional approaches with these like alternative therapies as well.
Yeah.
So, for example, like with the body pillar, it's not just about, hitting the gym and like downing protein shakes, right? They're talking about things like mindful eating, using certain herbs for liver support. They frame those as forms of detoxification.
Yes. And it is so interesting how they reframe detoxify because, so many people, they hear that word and they immediately think of like these extreme juice cleanses,
Yeah.
right? Or like some crazy dumb.
Yeah. It's very new year, new me.
Exactly. But this podcast, they really emphasize the more gentle, the sustainable practices. I mean, they even cited this one study, and I thought this was fascinating. Simply incorporating 30 minutes of walking into your day can have these significant detoxification benefits.
See, and that's what I like about it. It's those small but impactful, right?
Right.
And speaking of impactful, let's move on to the mind pillar because, oh my gosh, they are all about mindfulness, emotional intelligence, cultivating this mental clarity.
Right.
I'm curious, have you personally experimented with any of those things in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, mindfulness especially has really become like a cornerstone of my routine.
Interesting.
And it ties in directly with, what the podcast was highlighting about mental clarity. One of the things they suggest is this really simple morning journaling exercise.
Okay.
Just to kind of clear your mind, set your intentions for the day, which, by the way, is actually a technique that's backed by research on expressive writing.
See, and that's what I love. They back it up with like the science of it. So it's not just like fluffy advice. It's like tangible strategies. Now, the spirit pillar,
Right.
that one I feel like can sometimes feel a little vague, a little intimidating even.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's like, what does that even mean, in a practical sense?
Right. And I actually appreciate how the podcast, they address that head on.
Yeah.
Like they actually define spirit not as this like mystical entity, but more as this concept of tapping into your intuition, your core values, and then using those things to guide your decisions.
Okay.
And they had this great analogy. I don't know if you remember this part.
Yeah.
But they were comparing the spirit to a compass.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
It's always there to guide you, even when life feels really chaotic.
I love that analogy because it's like this internal compass that's always pointing you, hopefully in the right direction.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got nourishing the body through these mindful practices, cultivating a clear mind with things like journaling, and then tuning into that inner compass, that spirit, for guidance. And ultimately, all of that contributes to this sense of abundance they keep talking about.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is how they emphasize the interconnectedness of these pillars as well.
Yes.
Because, they make the point that when one of those pillars is out of balance, it really can create this ripple effect that ends up impacting all the others. And they gave such a compelling example was about how chronic stress, and so that's, the mind.
Right.
That can manifest as physical ailments in the body.
100%.
So it's impacting the body. And ultimately, all of that hinders our ability to experience true abundance.
It's so true. And I think people underestimate that mind-body connection. You know, it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
So for you listening right now, it's like, where in your life are you craving more abundance? Like, what's one tiny step you could take today, inspired by all of this, to kind of inch closer to that?
It's a really powerful question to consider.
Yeah.
And honestly, if any of this resonates with you, I would definitely recommend checking out that Abundance Wellness Hub podcast because they delve even deeper. They've got expert interviews, practical tips.
Awesome.
It's a great listen.
We'll link it in the show notes so you can check it out. Thanks for diving in with me.